How's it going, y'all? Bluegrass Sports Media here, and today we're going to talk about the Kentucky football 2021 team and schedule, as well as do some predictions on how I think the season's going to turn out. Before I get into the predictions, I want to break down a little bit of what we have returning at Kentucky and where I think we're headed. So at Kentucky, we just brought in new offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. I think he's going to be a great addition to the staff, coming from the Sean McVay system. We're going to be able to throw a forward pass this year, guys, and it's going to be great. As far as players go, losing two key offensive linemen in Drake Jackson and Landon Young. That's really all we're losing on the offensive side of the ball. Josh Ali's came back, our best receiver from last year's putrid passing game, has returned. As far as the defensive side of the ball, we've lost quite a few players. I mean, we lost Brandon Eccles, our star corner, probably the best corner on our team last year. We lost Quentin Bohanna, our interior nose guard, as well as a linebacker, Davis. Lost our linebacker, Davis. I think his name's Jamin Gerard or something like that. I don't really remember his name. I'm sorry about that. But as far as losses, that's really it. We did lose Joseph, the corner, but I didn't really think he played all that well this year, so I don't see that as a big loss. So let's get into the 2021 schedule, and let's break it down for you. So we open the 2021 schedule up with a pretty easy game against University of Lafayette Monroe, ULM. Now, ULM has had an entire staff overhaul after going 0-10 last year. Really bad football team last year. They did bring in a pretty good offensive coordinator in Rich Rodriguez and their new head coach, Terry Bowden. I don't see this being a problem, though. I mean, really, it's ULM. It's a tune-up game for the next game of the season, which we're going to get to in a minute. It's a real good tune-up game. Get all the players, hopefully look really fluid in the passing game, and get the season started on the right foot. Kentucky starts with a win. After ULM, we get a pretty good test. I think Missouri's a very good football team next year. Bringing back freshman last year, going to be a freshman again this year, Connor Bazelak, the quarterback. That guy was so good last year. He progressed so much towards the end of the year, looked really just phenomenal. They are losing their star running back, Larry Roundtree. Probably one of the top 2 or 3 backs in the SEC last year. A really good running back. He's went to the NFL. Second year under coach Eli Drinkowitz, so he's going to have them pretty much where he wants them. I think it's going to be a really close game, guys. I think this game goes down to the wire. I think it's going to be a battle in the trenches. But I do see Kentucky losing to Missouri. I think it's going to be close. It's 50-50. This is one of those games that could go either way on, but I think Missouri is just going to be a very, very good football team in 2021. So I think that's a loss for us, guys. Next up, University of Chattanooga. So this is obviously a win. I mean, Chattanooga's really bad. May still be a better football team than Tennessee right now. That's coming up later. But, I mean, I don't see any way we get beat by the University of Chattanooga. I haven't even looked in their football team, but I'm sure they're bad. They're an FCS team, so that's a W. Then it's on to Columbia, South Carolina, where we go play the South Carolina Gamecocks and their new head coach, Shane Beamer. Now, South Carolina has a very, very good running back coming back. His name's Kevin Harris. I think he led the SEC in rushing last year in a pretty good conference for running backs. I don't know if you've heard of Najee Harris. A lot of other great running backs in the SEC. Larry Roundtree, we just talked about before. So they're going to have a good running back. They are returning a quarterback they started at the end of last year in Luke Doty. I just don't think South Carolina has the talent to get this done, especially under a first-year head coach, a head coach that has turned over his staff so much already since he's been at South Carolina. I mean, he started off with Mike Bobo as his offensive coordinator and Will Friend as his offensive line coach. They bolted to Auburn along with Tracy Rockers, the defensive line coach. So he brings in another guy, and then his running back coach goes to the NFL. So much turnover in that coaching staff. I don't think they're going to be able to get it together in time. I don't know how good of a head coach Shane Beamer is going to turn out to be, but I think Kentucky gets the win here pretty easily. And then we go to Florida. Florida comes to Kroger Field to come get this beating. This is the W, guys. Florida loses 43 touchdowns off that roster from last year. In Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts, Travion Grimes, and Kadarius Toney. Goodness gracious. Get the words out your mouth. So much production gone. What we've seen in the bowl game against Oklahoma is the future at Florida. Their key returners are Emily Jones. Yes, Emily Jones, the quarterback, trash can quarterback. Keon Zipper's a pretty good tight end, but he's not Kyle Pitts. So there's going to be a big drop off there. And they return Todd Grantham. Todd Grantham's one of the worst defensive coordinators in college football right now. He runs Engage 8 the entire time. Florida's one of the two programs in the SEC that's, well, actually, the only program in the SEC that's head coach has a show cause, because Tennessee's head coach doesn't have a show cause yet. So Florida's getting this beat down in Kroger Field. That's a W. Take that, Florida man. How you like that? Then we invite another team into Kroger Field from the SEC West this time in LSU. LSU, they have probably the best college football player returning this year in Derek Stingley Jr. They did lose a big-time tight end in Eric Gilbert and another great receiver in Terrence Marshall Jr., and they lost their star linebacker, Jabril Cox. But, I mean, it's LSU. They reload every year. Florida fans can't say that. I mean, LSU reloads not to the level of Alabama, because Alabama just has the best recruiting outside of Georgia in the SEC. But they reload every year at LSU. So, that secondary is going to be great. That defense is going to be great. The question mark is going to be on offense. Can the Joe Brady disciple, I'm blanking on his name right now, the guy that came from the Carolina Panthers, can he come in and get it done? I think LSU has too much talent. I think Kentucky goes in there and gives them a very, very competitive game at Kroger Field, but I think we fall to LSU at Kroger Field. LSU just has too much talent. I know it hurts me to say that we can't beat an LSU team, but they're very, very good, very talented. And yeah, I think we lose this one, guys. Then we have to go to Athens to play the University of Georgia. Probably the best team, if not in the SEC, definitely in the SEC East. I mean, returning players like JT Daniels, the entire running back room, which probably at some point may be on an NFL roster. George Pickens. They just have so much talent. I mean, they've recruited consistently in the top 5 for the past 3 or 4 years. Kirby Smart has squandered some of that talent in the past, but it's almost the same thing as LSU. They have so much firepower, and now they have an offensive coordinator who's actually willing to throw the football. Georgia's going to be a powerhouse next year, especially going into Athens. I'm just hoping this one doesn't get ugly. I mean, I think we have a chance to be the second best team in the East next year, but it's going to be a big gap between the second best team in the East and Georgia. I mean, Georgia may be the best team in the country next year, and it's just going to be a rough night in Athens for us, guys. I have a feeling. Then we have a bye week, and then coming off the bye, we go to Starkville to play Mississippi State and Bigfoot. Second year under Mike Leach, I think the offense is going to be much, much better. I think their only problem is, are they going to be able to stop people? I think Kentucky's offensive line and the running game is going to be the same keys as it was in this year in 2020. They're not going to be able to stop the running game. I think Kentucky wins this one, but I do think Mississippi State is going to be better next year because of Mike Leach getting his system, getting the guys he wants in there, bringing in. He's still a freshman, freshman Will Rogers, who played in the system last year. I think they're going to be much, much better, but I do think Kentucky still comes in here and gets a win with a great defense coached by Mark Stoops and Coach White. I really hope the offense takes the next step and we can compete with them offensively, but I think worst comes to worst, we can still run the ball down the throat. I don't think they're going to get that much better from year to year after and with Coach Leach. And then Tennessee comes to Kroger Field. We went down to Neyland last year and put 35, I believe it was, on Tennessee and beat them down by 27 points with 3 pick sixes and just completely dominated them on the defensive side of the ball. They're coming in a depleted football team. I mean, they have 20 kids in the transfer portal right now, probably more to come. They have NCAA sanctions looming over their head right now, waiting to drop. I think I heard something like 50 plus level 1 sanctions, which is not going to be great. Then they go hire this guy who looks like he's a manager at the local fucking Walmart, and Josh Heupel, who UCF was one bad season away from firing, probably. You guys go buy him and the athletic director out of there. Give them $6 million so they can go hire a good coach. Tennessee's just a complete dumpster fire right now. They're going to come down to Kroger Field and get beat to sleep. I mean, I don't see it happening any other way. I don't think it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be just like the game we played against Chattanooga earlier in the year. We're just going to beat them to death. Harrison Bailey's going to take a beating if he is a starting quarterback. Hooker's going to get beat like a hooker if he's a starting quarterback. So I think we go in there and get the W, or we stay home and get the W pretty easily. And then we travel to Nashville to play probably a better football team than Tennessee will field this year in Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt bringing in a new coach, defensive coordinator from Notre Dame. I don't remember his name. Their rebuilding program. I mean, they've always been rebuilding since James Franklin left and Derek Mason took over. They've been rebuilding. I think that Vandy may have a chance to win a game this year in the SEC. I think they have a chance to beat a team like Tennessee. I think Tennessee's lost too much talent. But they're not beating Kentucky. Kentucky is a tier above teams like Tennessee and Vandy, and to some points, even South Carolina, in my opinion. I think Vandy's new coach gets a win this year in the SEC, but it's not going to be against Kentucky. So this is a W for us, guys. Moving on. Next up on the list is New Mexico. New Mexico's a terrible football team. Just here to come get beat to sleep. I think they play at Kroger Field. Yeah, they're coming to get beat to sleep at Kroger Field. Really not much to say here, guys. New Mexico's a bad football team. They're just coming here to get a paycheck. Moving on to the final game of the season, and in some Kentucky fans' biggest game of the season. We go to Louisville to play the Louisville Cardinals and Coach Scott Satterfield. Now, the Cardinals, abysmal last year on defense. They had 3 bright spots on offense. 1 has left for the NFL. That would be Tutu Atwell. Tutu Atwell leaves for the NFL, and who can blame him? I think Louisville's going to be a pretty bad football team next year. I mean, I don't see them getting any better on defense. And they are bringing back 2 pretty good players in the backfield, in Malik Cunningham and Javion Hawkins. Javion Hawkins is like 110 pounds soaking wet, but that dude can flat out fly if he can get some blocks for him up front. Overall, I think we win this game. I don't think they can defend the run. Hopefully we have a passing game by this point. I think we go into Louisville and get a win against a rival Louisville. I think it's a close football game just because it's a rivalry game, but I think we go in there and get a win. So that wraps it up. I think Kentucky's going to go 9-3 this year. I think this will be a very phenomenal season for Kentucky. I think going into a bowl game with a chance to get to 10 wins is probably the pinnacle that Kentucky can get to in its program. You know, with teams like Georgia, and I hate to say it, most years even a Florida. I mean, it's going to be very hard for us to ever suspect to win the East or win the SEC. I mean, it's going to take an anomaly a year. especially with Alabama in the West as well as some other teams in the West. But I think 9-3 is a pretty good, pretty great season for Kentucky. I think if we can somehow sneak in that Missouri loss and make the Georgia game mean something, I think that would be great. But as far as it goes for me, I appreciate you guys watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm trying to grow this channel, and y'all have a good day, guys.